Hey, what's going on, guys? So here's the very first video that will be filmed entirely on our new GoPro Hero 7 Black. So hopefully the audio is okay. I know it's a lot better. I've been testing this camera. It's a lot better than it was with the Hero 4. So we don't need external mics. We have an extremely compact setup that we can fit just about anywhere. So let's get into what we're doing today. Today, I got an idea. So we have an engine job coming soon where we have to replace the engine on a 2009 Nissan Murano. Now, the engine blew. Why it blew is irrelevant. But what I figured was I want to show you guys what to look for and what to stay away from when you're buying a used engine or any used automotive part for that matter from any junkyard, recycler, LKQ facility, PMP facility, and what to look for when you're buying those things, because we can get screwed, literally screwed a lot of times when you're buying something from a junkyard, because you don't know what the actual mileage of the vehicle was. You don't know if it's just a lie, you know, 20,000 mile motor in a 20-year-old car, probably not legitimately 20,000 miles. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go over some of the things, because we actually got the engine for the Murano here. We're going to go over some of the things you need to look for when you're buying an engine at a junkyard. And we're going to give you an idea of what you need to stay away from when you're buying an engine from a junkyard. Now, the things are going to differ slightly between, you know, a junkyard versus a recycler versus a used auto parts seller versus a pick and pull. Pick and pulls are a lot nicer because you can actually physically see what you're buying before you buy it. But most good salvage yards or used parts sellers will allow you into their warehouse to take a look at what it is you're buying. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to take you guys over to the engine that we just bought, which is sitting right over there, and we're going to go over some things that I like about this particular place that I buy my engines from. And yeah, we'll give you an idea of what to look for when you're buying and also what to stay away from. So here we go. We'll go over to the engine. All right, guys, so here's what we're looking at. This is a 2014 Nissan VQ35DE. Now you can see from the video, number one thing you want to look for is how much oxidation is actually on the aluminum. Now in this particular motor, there is some. This came out of a 2014 that was wrecked about a year and a half ago, so it did sit a little bit. The hood was still on the vehicle, but when vehicles sit, they tend to get, you know, a little bit of oxidation on them. Now, if this was horrendously oxidized and all the pulleys were rusted solid and everything else, you'd have to replace all these, but all these spin. So that's something good to look for. We've got an oil filter with a date on it. 3/26/18 was when the last oil change was done. So this car was probably wrecked sometime mid-2018. So I would say a year or less from the time this was wrecked to the time we got the engine. Now here's something you want to look for and something you want to stay away from. So on this engine is a pretty intricate wiring harness. Now the wiring harnesses on these new motors are very, very well integrated into the engines. And what I found is that a junkyard is going to have a problem with giving you the wiring harness because they think they can sell it, or they get chop happy and they chop off this entire harness. They'll usually cut them right here at the big spot and right here, and you'll be stuck having to get yourself a wiring harness. And if you don't get a wiring harness, if you're doing just a swap for swap on an engine, you're basically going to end up having to remove everything you see here to swap the wiring harness. You got to remove the intake manifold. You got to remove, you know, all of this stuff in order to get this wiring harness in place. It's going to be a massive, massive pain in the butt. So when you can look around and you can find that all of these connectors, this is for the mass airflow sensor, that's intact. These are the 3 ECU connectors. Those are all intact, which is awesome. You got your transmission. You also have your transmission here again for the TCU, transmission control unit. Then up front, you'll notice here, this is a sign to look for also. This is for the front oxygen sensor for this front bank, which we don't have the exhaust manifold on. But they cut the wires for the sensor. However, they left it plugged in, so it still retains its weatherproofing. which means that this connector is not going to be damaged by water because they maintained the connector location and the connector itself. So we're good there. They also included the positive terminal for the harness. Now, like I said, normally they cut these things. So we will literally be able to unplug and plug back into all of the stuff on the 09. Now, here's another thing to look for. This guy right here is the old fuel line. Now, you can tell generally how long a vehicle has been sitting by the smell of the gas. So if the vehicle's been sitting for, I don't know, let's just say the vehicle's been sitting for 6 years. That gas is going to smell terrible. If it's been sitting for a year, it still smells like gas, but it has a unique odor to it. And if it's only been sitting for a month or two, it's going to smell like fresh gas. So that's a way to tell how long this engine's been sitting. Now, this one I can tell by the smell of the gas. It's probably been a good year, maybe a little bit longer. But the reason this is important is because bad gas in an engine that has been sitting for years can gum up fuel injectors. It can gum up the entire fuel system basically on the engine, and you may have to pull the injectors, use your old injectors, clean these injectors, something. But if the engine hasn't been sitting long, then you're usually okay. So that's another thing to look for. One of the things, again, I love about this particular yard that I buy from in Connecticut here is that they plug everything. So the throttle body is plugged, all the coolant passages are plugged, the fuel line is plugged, even the PCV stuff is plugged. Anywhere where water intrusion could be a massive problem, they plug them. Same thing with all of the ports for the exhaust manifold. Those are all plugged. So really, really good facility that I buy from. And this is the reason that I buy from them, because I can take this engine harness and I can flop it over top of the engine, put the engine in the car, plug everything in, turn the key, and we're good to go. We even have a fuel line. We have all of our evap stuff. We have all our PCV stuff. We have all our intake manifold stuff. And we have everything. So now, another thing you're going to want to be looking for too is read the warranty information. So this yard, Bishop's, obviously you can see that on here, is one of the go-tos for me because they are so good with their warranties. If this engine even looks funny to me, I can call them up and say, hey, listen, I don't like the way this engine looks, bring me another one, and they will. So they're absolutely incredible with that. And they're also incredible with their packaging, as silly as this might sound. But a palletized engine means that this motor came out of the car and has been sitting on this wooden pallet. It hasn't been sitting on the ground, in the grass, in the dirt, nothing. And you can see that by the fact that it is actually strapped to this pallet. And that keeps it off of the ground. It keeps the oil pan from getting damaged, and it keeps everything else underneath the engine from sustaining any kind of damage. So now when we go to put this engine in, we got to put the alternator, the AC compressor, and the power steering pump on it, drop this thing in or raise it up into the car, and we're good. So now here's something to stay away from. I know I've been talking about what to look for, but here's what to stay away from. If you guys don't see any of these plugs, if nothing has been capped off, if there's no tagging on the motor telling you what's been done to it, whether it's got oil in it, doesn't have oil in it, whether you need to do something to it that they haven't done, stay away from those engines. Stay away from the engines where all of these hoses are cut. As you can see, Bishop's actually leaves the clamps in place, so you can just pop this on, reclamp it, and you're good to go. Make sure that nothing in the intake manifold is cut. Make sure the harness is not cut, because that's very common with junkyards versus recyclers, is that they'll cut that harness. So make sure your harness isn't cut. Check one of these things with these VQs that I noticed, and a lot of the Nissan engines, or any engine for that matter that's got a plastic valve cover, a lot of times when they tear these things out of the cars, they drop them. And if they drop them, they crack these manifolds, or these valve covers. They'll crack the valve cover, crack the intake manifold, because junkyards are not necessarily concerned with the quality of the part that's going out. They're just concerned with making, you know, the $500, $600, $700 off of the engine, and, you know, not so worried about you breaking other things, because they assume you already have a good motor with all that good stuff on it. You're just going to swap it over. But in all reality, if you guys are doing this for yourself, then you have the time to swap it over. But if you're doing it for a customer, It saves a ton of time, a ton of labor, and saves the customer money if you can get a package, basically a full repower that's ready to go. Plug it in, plumb it up, call it a day. All right, guys, so that's just a quick look, and this applies to any part that you're buying. It's not just engines, but it's transmissions, window motors, body panels, anything like that. Now, mechanical stuff is a little difficult because 9 times out of 10 you won't be able to hear it run, you won't be able to drive it, so you'll kind of have to take the yard's word for it. So it is in your best interest to find yourself a really, really good yard that you can trust. Someone that's maybe LKQ certified, and there's several other certifications for auto recyclers out there that hold those recyclers to a very specific standard of quality. And when you're in business like I am, and you're doing this for friends and family and various other people, you need to know that the quality is going to be there, because the last thing I want to do is put an engine in, turn the key, have it knock, and have to pull an engine out and eat that labor. And I've had to do that before. I've had to do that on 2 separate occasions when I bought from one specific yard 2 engines that were bad right off the rip, and I had to eat the labor on both of them. So that is no bueno. You guys need to find someplace good to buy your parts from. Now, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to give you a very good tool. A lot of you have probably heard of it. We got all that stuff flying around, so I'm going to be sniffly pretty soon. I'm going to give you guys a very good tool. A lot of you have probably heard of it, but it is a website called car-part.com. Unfortunately, they are not a sponsor of this channel or this show, for instance, or for that matter. And but I feel it's worthy of giving you guys the site. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it right here. I'll give you a picture of the homepage. And what that site allows you to do, what this site allows you to do, is it allows you to search every make and model of vehicle that is available in the United States, and even some that aren't. And it gives you, based upon your geographical area, various yards that participate in car-part.com, which is pretty much all of them. So when I buy a part, that is the first place I look. I go to car-part.com, search out the part I need, and then I can see if the yard that I prefer uses it, or if the yard that I prefer has the part that I'm looking for, or if potentially there are some other yards out there that might have the part. And it also allows you to compare cost and mileage and condition and everything else. And a lot of them now started using photographs of everything. So it is a very, very, very useful and helpful tool to help you get the parts that you need at a much further reduced cost than it were to buy OEM or even aftermarket. And buying used parts, in my opinion, used transmissions especially, if you can find a low mileage used transmission that is in good condition, it is inherently better than a remanufactured transmission. So I go that route every single time. So yeah, car-part.com, plug in your information, plug in what you're looking for. There goes a fuzzy. And you'll be surprised at what you can find. And in that, you'll find yourself a yard or a few yards that are very, very high quality. The one that I use is Bishop's Automotive, Bishop's Used Auto here in Connecticut. I use them for pretty much 99% of the engines I buy, because I can always trust their engines, and I can always trust that their engines are good. So I'll leave a link down in the description to car-part.com. You guys also just saw the website. Very user-friendly, very, very, very simple, and can get you what you need. So I hope that kind of gives you a quick idea, a quick overview of what to look for, what not to look for, or what to look for versus what to avoid when you're buying something from a junkyard or a used auto recycler or a used auto parts house or whatever they want to call themselves. Just keep your eyes open, because you could get screwed. And the less you get screwed, the better, as it always is. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, new camera setup. We've got the GoPro Hero 7 Black. We're filming in 4K. We're going to down-res it to 1080 because my computer hates 4K. So hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll get on it. We got a clutch job coming in today and a GTI that we are going to film. We've also got this motor job on Monday that we are going to film. So we got some pretty cool videos coming at you. And now that we have the new compact camera setup, I'll be able to get you guys in there a little bit better and let you see what's going on. So I hope you guys have a good one. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Click the like button. Leave me a comment, concern, criticisms, anything you want to leave in the bottom. I always take everything. I always read everything. And hit that little bell so that you're notified when I post stuff, because it's not a daily posting, so it's not very often, and the notifications do help to get my videos out there so that you guys can see them. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. It's absolutely beautiful out here in Connecticut today, so we'll talk to you later. Have a great day, guys.